Some of the hardest records from the 90s never got a second look after their moment passed. The charts moved on, the radio playlists flipped, and entire careers got buried under the next wave. We are going back to dig all of them up. Starting at number 15, Father MC, I'll Do For You.
Queen, cook and clean, get your bubble bath ready so I can rub you with Noxine and watch how gentle
Father MC came out of Uptown Records during the New Jack Swing era, one of the most stylistically rich periods hip-hop and R&B ever produced. His sound rode that perfect line between rap and melodic soul, and he was in the building early, sharing stages and early recordings with a young Mary J. Blige before she became the queen of hip-hop soul. The track had radio warmth, genuine groove, and a delivery that felt cinematic. But when the New Jack Swing wave crested and broke, Father MC went with it. The format changed, the streets wanted harder sounds, and smooth rap crooners lost their footing fast. Real heads remember what this record meant to that moment. It deserves a full revisit, because the craft is undeniable. Number 14, N2 Deep, Back to the Hotel. Out of Stockton, California in 1992, N2 Deep dropped a West Coast slow ride that felt completely different from what the gangster rap movement was pushing at the time. The production leaned laid back and melodic, a sun-drenched groove that connected with listeners who wanted something smoother without losing the hip-hop edge. The record reportedly reached the Billboard Hot 100, which was no small thing for a duo from Stockton who were largely unknown outside regional circles. What hurt them was exactly what made them interesting. They did not fit the dominant narrative of early 90s West Coast rap, so there was no lane built for them to grow into. But go back and play that record now. It holds up in a way that surprises you. Number 13, Candyman, Knockin' Boots. Atlanta, 1991.
She knows my name, knows every rap routine, but how'd she get in my limousine?
Before Dirty South had a name, before the ATL sound had become a global export, Candyman was in there doing something that walked the tightrope between hip-hop bravado and straight-up comedy. The record moved through urban radio rotation with real momentum and was one of the early signals that Southern hip-hop was capable of crossing over to broader audiences without losing its regional identity. He was ahead of the curve for what Atlanta would eventually become, but being ahead of the curve in 1991 meant the infrastructure was not there yet to sustain the momentum. The machine could not package what he was doing into anything lasting. Still, Knockin' Boots is a time capsule for a southern scene that was just beginning to find its voice. That matters. Number 12, Mr. Grimm, Indo Smoke, 1993. Warren G produced this record, and if you know Warren G's production fingerprints, you already know what the sonic landscape looked like. West Coast G-Funk warmth, deep bass, hypnotic keys. Indo Smoke appeared on the Above the Rim soundtrack, which was one of the most important hip-hop compilations of the decade, a project that also housed Tupac and a generation of voices defining what the West Coast represented. Mr. Grimm had the sound, had the placement, had the moment, but the surrounding artists on that soundtrack were absorbing most of the cultural oxygen. He came, delivered, and then the wave moved past him before he could establish a foundation. But that record carries Warren G's golden era production at its most immersive. Go back and let it breathe. Number 11, Dewis, Dazzy Ducks.
The girls with the big old booties, where I'm from, they call them dookies. Put around chicks, take it from the G.
Atlanta delivered again in 1993 with a bass-heavy Miami-influenced record that turned a pair of denim shorts into a cultural moment. Dewis understood that summer anthems do not need complexity. They need energy, repetition, and a groove that refuses to let go. The record reportedly charted on the Billboard Hot 100 and got significant regional play across the South and Southeast. What it did not get was critical respect, which is almost always the fate of records that prioritize fun over depth. Hip-hop gatekeepers in '93 were not generous with party records that wore their intentions plainly, but every great summer has a soundtrack, and Dazzy Ducks was stitched into that one. We should not be ashamed to say it still hits. Number 10, 95 South, woo, there it is, Jacksonville, Florida, 1993. Here is a piece of history that real heads love to bring up. 95 South and Tag Team dropped records with almost identical titles the same summer. Both charted. Both got significant radio play. Both became part of the same cultural conversation simultaneously, which almost never happens in pop music history. 95 South came with a harder bass knock and a rawer delivery that felt more connected to the club floor than to mainstream radio. The Tag Team version ultimately got more crossover traction, which pushed 95 South into the shadow position, and they have lived there ever since. But heads from that era know the real. 95 South deserves to stand on its own legacy without constantly being compared to the other record. We're watching Hip Hop Legends Archives, and we are exactly halfway through 15 forgotten one-hit wonders from the golden era. The second half of this list goes even deeper. We are talking Brooklyn, the Bronx, Oakland, and Washington, D.C. Records that pushed radio limits, started beefs, and built reputations that outlasted the chart runs. Stay locked in. The best is still coming. Number 9. Tag Team. Whoop! There it is. Atlanta, 1993. D.C.
Come on, whoop. There it is, I'm done.
And Steve Rowan built one of the most recognizable party anthems in hip-hop history with a record that reportedly sat on the Billboard Hot 100 for an extended run that surprised everyone, including the industry. The production was simple, the hook was undeniable, and the record became unavoidable at every arena event, sporting broadcast, and school gymnasium in America for the better part of 2 years. But that ubiquity became the anchor that sank them. Once a record reaches total saturation, the backlash arrives fast, and careers attached to a single moment rarely survive the correction. Tag Team gave us something that still functions as a room energizer 3 decades later. That kind of cultural durability does not come by accident. Number 8, B-Rock and the Biz, My Baby Daddy. This one landed in the late 90s and operates almost entirely in the lane of party record and social commentary at the same time. The phrase "my baby daddy" was already part of everyday conversation, but this record codified it, amplified it, turned it into a comedic set piece that regional radio embraced fully. It did not get mainstream critical attention because it was too playful, too regional, and too uninterested in the prestige that hip-hop was beginning to chase in the late 90s as it moved toward the glossy era. But the record was honest about what it was. A slice of community life dressed up in a club groove. There is something real in that honesty that deserves acknowledgement. Number 7. KP and Envy, Swing My Way. Out of Buffalo, New York in 1998.
Didn't need no game, just had to say, shorty swing my way.
KP and Envy dropped a hip-hop and R&B hybrid that leaned into feminine energy at a time when female perspectives in hip-hop were still fighting for consistent shelf space. Regional radio in the Northeast embraced this record genuinely, and it developed a loyal base without ever fully breaking into the national conversation. 1998 was an intensely competitive year for hip-hop releases, and regional acts without major label infrastructure rarely survived the noise. KP and Envy got crowded out before the record could build the momentum it deserved. But the chemistry on that track is authentic, and any playlist built around late 90s R&B influenced hip-hop is incomplete without it. Number 6. Lord Tariq and Peter Guns, Deja Vu, Uptown Baby.
Deja Vu, and I got another clip down a Deja Crew. I said Chris Down, P, Mo.
The Bronx, 1997. This record samples Pete Rock and CL. Smooth's Reminisce, one of the most beloved boom-bap productions in golden era history, and it uses that sample to build something that felt simultaneously nostalgic and immediate. The record reportedly charted and got genuine crossover attention, riding a wave of late 90s New York pride. Peter Guns would later become known as a television personality, which reframed how people remembered him. Suddenly, the music felt like a footnote to the reality TV chapter. That reframing did a disservice to a record that deserves to be appreciated for what it actually was, a Bronx love letter built on the shoulders of hip-hop's golden architecture. Real heads never let it go. Number 5, Akinyele, Put It In Your Mouth, Brooklyn, 1996. This record pushed radio limits so aggressively that it became a litmus test for what program directors would and would not allow on air. Akinyele had genuine New York City underground credibility before the record broke through, which meant heads already knew his technical ability and street reputation. But the explicit content that made the record a viral moment before viral was even a concept also made it impossible to sustain a mainstream radio relationship. Stations that played it did so carefully, and the controversy that followed left him slept on by the wider audience he might have reached. The wordplay on that record is sharper than most give it credit for. Brooklyn always had him a hostly. Number 4, Sporty Thieves, No Pigeons. 1999, this record was a direct answer record to TLC's No Scrubs, and it landed with enough wit and production quality to reportedly chart on its own merits rather than simply riding the controversy. Answer records rarely work. They usually feel reactive, desperate, or cheap. No Pigeons avoided all of that by being genuinely funny, well-constructed, and musically tight enough to stand independently of the beef that created it. But being defined by a response to someone else's record is a ceiling that is almost impossible to escape, and Sporty Thieves never fully stepped out from under that framing. The record is smarter than history has been willing to admit, and it represents a strain of hip-hop humor that we have not seen executed at that level since. Number 3, Luna's I Got 5 on It, Oakland, California, 1995. Yuckmouth and Numbskull built a record around a Michael McDonald sample from I Keep Forgetting that felt so perfectly chosen it almost sounds inevitable in retrospect. The record reportedly charted on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the defining Bay Area anthems of the decade, a record that told a specific story about a specific community in a specific moment with unflinching honesty. Oakland did not always get its due from the coastal media that centered New York and Los Angeles, and Luna's got caught in that geographic blind spot even while the record was connecting nationally. I Got 5 on It has never stopped playing in certain circles, and those circles have always known something the mainstream took too long to recognize. Number 2, Fu-Schnickens, What's Up Doc, Can We Rock, 1992.
Doc, can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc?
3 members, Chip Fu, Poke Fu, and Muck Fu, brought a rapid-fire technical flow that made most of their contemporaries sound like they were moving in slow motion. And then Shaquille O'Neal appeared on the record, which should have launched them into the permanent conversation about 90s hip-hop greatness. The record reportedly charted and received both MTV and radio play at a meaningful level. But rapid-fire technical rap has a limited mainstream shelf life, and the moment the format fell out of fashion, there was no crossover lane waiting for them. Heads who lived through it remember exactly how jaw-dropping those flows were. Fu-Schnickens were certified before certified was the standard. Number 1, DJ Kool, Let Me Clear My Throat. Washington, D.C., 1996. This record was built on classic breaks sampled from the foundation of hip-hop's own history, and it functioned as both a party anthem and a tribute to where the music came from. It reportedly charted, but more importantly, it developed a cultural staying power that outlasted every chart position in every radio cycle. You still hear this record at sporting events, at parties, at moments where someone needs a room to come alive. DJ Kool gave us something that connects the old school to the new school without condescending to either. That kind of record does not get made by accident. It gets made by someone who genuinely loves the music and understood what it was built on. Those are 15 more forgotten records that the 90s buried too fast. If any of these hit you in the chest, drop the name of the one that brought you back hardest in the comments right now. Hip Hop Legends Archives wants to hear which record you have been missing. Subscribe if you are not already here, because we go this deep every single time. The golden era did not run out of stories. We are just getting started.